former Minister of Environment and Climate Change used to say that the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago. The second best time is now. Well, in 2020, it is even more important that we not just talk about the environment, but we do things to protect the environment. And this is a good thing that the Patriots is doing, and I too want to send my congratulations, but also lend my support as best as possible. I recall sometime in May or June, there were, you may have seen it, a series of photos and videos that were going around from scenes across the world. And it showed where some of the areas where we have a lot of garbage, that those were reduced. It shows some trees, some birds that we haven't seen for a long time coming out. And people are just talking about the freshness of the air. Did anybody see any of those clips? And someone remarked in one of those scenes that COVID was teaching us how to get back to nature. And in a way, COVID was one way in which nature was curing itself. Now, unlike, I was going to say Lemar, but it's not Lemar. Unlike the GenSec of the Patriots, I'm not an environmentalist, so I will withhold my verdict. But what is true is that we have not taken care of the environment as we should. For many centuries, we have really just abused the environment. So we eat and we throw things out. This morning I'm driving here and I saw a man, he ate like something that looks like a mango, and he just threw it in front of me. And I was so angry at him. Not because I was coming here, but because I realized that we are still not learning. And the issue of recycling becomes even more important now than ever. My son, who is 4 years old, and he likes Paw Patrol. You know about Paw Patrol for your daughter. And in Paw Patrol, there is one of the dogs. It's a little it's a comedy of sorts. And you have dogs, and one of them is called, what's his name, the green one. And he likes to say Rubble. He likes to say reuse, renew, recycle. And I used to hear Nathan talk about it. I was like, Nathan, what are you talking about? How do you know about that? Until I started watching Paw Patrol. And at 4 years old, he understands the importance of reuse, renew, and recycle. So in my mind, if a 4-year-old understands that, then why we can't understand it? In primary school, there's a song we used to sing called bits of paper lying on the ground. Anybody remember? Am I the only one who went to primary school? Because you people who went to prep school probably didn't sing that song. But what it did at that time was it created an awareness in our minds of the importance of picking up after yourself. In 2009, I lived in England. Didn't have the experience in Switzerland like my friend uncovered, but I lived in England for a while. And I too faced a challenge because there were like 3 or 4 barrels that they put out, and you had to choose which one to put your garbage in. But I'll go a step further to say you better put in the right one, because if you don't put in the right one, you're going to be fined. And after a while, it became a part of your social consciousness that you dispose your plastic bottles, you dispose your degradable waste, and you dispose your other garbage. And the garbage truck comes, picks it up, and it sorts it accordingly. And so, in 2020, we were a little behind, but better late than never. Some time ago, the KCC started a pilot project for the same recycling. I sought to get an update as to where we are with that, and I still am not sure, but I'm using the opportunity to call for the full implementation of that project, because it is something that must be done, and we have to start now. And so, ladies and gentlemen, while we talk about the protection of the environment, and while we applaud the work of the Patriots and the involvement of the different communities, the fact is that there are levels. And this morning I want to talk about the national level. And when I speak of the national level, I'm talking about the decisions that the political directorate makes. because we can do the best we can at our level. But a signal must be sent at the highest level through our political leadership that they too are serious about the protection of the environment. And that message has to be more than a ministry with the name environment and climate change attached to it. We have to have practical actions which illustrate, demonstrate, and convince persons that indeed there is a commitment to protecting the environment. Regrettably, we are not convinced that sufficient work is being done to protect the environment. And we know this. We know this because if you looked at what happened with the mining in St. Anne and mining particularly in the cockpit country, we know that there is not a commitment to the protection of the environment. You see, the cockpit country represents one of the largest remaining natural resources in Jamaica. It has in it some of our rare species. It also represents one of the most cherished and historically rich area in our country. But the government has not shown that appreciation for the cockpit country. And so not only was mining allowed in the cockpit country, notwithstanding the definition that has gone to Parliament, but what we have seen is that through the approval of SML 73, that there's a continuation. So in recent days, we would have heard of persons sharing their views about mining in the cockpit country. We've heard about the environmental impact assessment that has been done, and persons have shared their views on the environmental impact assessment. The fact of the matter is that whereas we understand that there is an economic reality that we can't hide from, as Comrade Bunting said, we have to do a cost assessment. We have to do a cost-benefit analysis to see if after 40 years of mining, if Jamaica is any better. And it has to go beyond just a salary. And we understand the importance of persons to earn. But we must ask, is it worth it? Is that the best balance that can be had? Last term, I had the opportunity to visit communities in St. Anne and St. Elizabeth, mining communities. And they shared with us their reality. They shared with us the impact that mining has been having on them through the dust nuisance. They spoke about the health impacts and the health challenges, not just on adults, but on children who are unable to go to school because of respiratory challenges that they were having, which they believe has come from the mining in the area. And the reality of it is that many persons' lives have been turned upside down. The cycle of poverty has increased and continues through some of these activities. And so, whereas we're not, asking or advancing the idea that persons should lose their job, what we are unequivocally advancing is the fact that we must do a cost-benefit analysis to assess whether or not in 2020 mining is the best way that we can use our lands. We must do a cost-benefit analysis to find out if after all these years, Jamaica has something else to show apart from the foreign exchange that it has brought in. And the truth is, we talk about the bauxite levy. What has happened to the bauxite levy? It has not done what it ought to do, because the bauxite levy was implemented to help to develop communities in bauxite mining areas. And if you take an objective look and an objective assessment, then you will see that some of the communities in the bauxite areas are no better off. I know for a fact that 20, 30 years later, persons are still unable to get their titles for property. And the bauxite companies are not going to give it to you. Whether because you were not stated as a beneficiary, whether because the deceased who would have sold or traded the land with the bauxite entity did not leave a will, and and then you have to go through that long drawn-out process of the grant of administration. The fact is, so many persons' lives have been impacted negatively through bauxite mining. And the time has come for us to really make an assessment to determine, is it worth it for us to continue? Not just because of the financial implications, we have to look at the environmental implications and the health implications. And so I'm making a call again that something must be done about that. But apart from bauxite mining, more recently, we have been hearing and we can see in the news the issue of the approval given by the Prime Minister regarding the Dry Harbour Mountains and the Bengal lands. Now, let me tell you, I am from St. Anne, so I know the area. And it is one of the most beautiful stretch of land you'll see coming from Discovery heading into Montego Bay. It is undisturbed, it is beautiful, it is nature at its best. Now, why would a rational thinking government think it important or think it necessary in the scheme of everything in a balanced way to give permit? Noting that the technical body, the NEPA, NEPA, which is by law charged to make that determination, having assessed everything, having looked at the EIA, having listened to the different comments and stakeholders, decided that no, on the balance, it is not in the best interest of Jamaicans, particularly those in that community, for us to give their approval. But the minister, in his infinite wisdom, decided that they're going to reverse the decision of the technical body. And something has to be wrong with that, because the minister has no training in that area. But say, let's say he was advised by someone with training in the area. Because the law does provide that the minister has the right to hear an appeal. So the applicant who was denied has the right to appeal directly to the minister, and he has that right to hear the appeal. But what is unknown is who heard the appeal. Was the appeal heard by the Prime Minister himself at the time? Was the Minister of Environment? Or was it heard by someone else? Who really made the decision? We must also ask, what were the factors to which the Minister addressed his mind? Because if NEPA, which is the technical body, says no, we cannot grant this approval for these reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 reasons which were stated expressly, then to what would the minister address his mind? Not having that technical know-how. We must also ask ourselves, who were the persons who appeared before this appeal? Was it just the applicant, Bengal, and his attorney? Or were the technical bodies, NEPA, the Forestry Department, which gave a very comprehensive comment? If you had a chance to read it, yeah, you'd see the comments and the concerns by the Forestry Department. Were they given an opportunity to share their views to the minister? Were the citizens, the residents in the community or the communities so impacted, were they given an opportunity themselves to appear before the appeal tribunal and share their views with the minister? And these are questions that any rational thinking person, regardless of color of your political party, that is, would ask. Because these technical bodies charged by law to make certain decisions made a decision. And to make it worse, in making the decision to reverse NEPA's decision, 72 conditions were attached. Now, you've been in politics much longer than I have. You have served in the executive. So you may have to remind me if you can recall at any point an approval was given with 72 conditions. And in my mind, with the limited knowledge I have of the environment and of course following on the experts, then if you're going to put 72 conditions on a permit, then go through this 72 condition, it puts a lot of work and monitoring at the feet of NEPA. Now, on a good day, NEPA just, and this is not taking a look at NEPA, but on a good day, NEPA cannot do everything that it's supposed to do because there are real constraints that it has to treat with, such as human resources, financial resources, and it simply can't. So these 72 conditions, most of which will have to be overseen and supervised by NEPA, you wonder who's going to really enforce it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as we consider the work of the Patriots in recycling, we must also consider whether or not our elected representatives, in this case whether the Prime Minister and the Minister of Environment, is being fair to the Jamaican people. Bearing in mind that the Constitution of Jamaica, through the Bill of Rights, through the Charter of Rights, states unequivocally, rather expressly, that everyone has a right, and I'm paraphrasing, but you have a right to a clean and healthy environment. When you have a situation where over 100 trucks will be passing in any one day, the issue of noise pollution comes to the fore. The issue of air pollution comes to the fore. Is that giving effect to your right to a clean environment? When you have a situation where in the 72 conditions it is stated that the trucks must be phased so that they pass every 15 minutes. It is clear in my mind, and you're going to have to help me now because you're the environmental expert, so you have to help me out, okay? I'm going to take your lessons, right? But you're a teacher. But it is clear, as a student, and I want to believe I'm a relatively good student, right, Robert Bunting? It is clear in my mind that there is an acceptance that the right is being infringed upon. And the same constitution tells you now that no organ of the government of the state should pass any law that abridges or abrogates the rights of any citizen. And the rights enshrined in the Constitution through the Charter of Rights say you have a right to a clean and healthy environment. And then we want to look at the impact, the financial impact. Because we're not just talking from what we hear and what we see. The opposition physically journeyed to St. Anne. And we met with the residents and we spoke with the residents because we wanted to understand the matter. We wanted to understand the issue. And they shared with us their concerns, ranging from environmental to financial. There is a likely financial fallout on these residents in several ways. So the homeowners, for example, will be impacted because that area contains some of the most rare species of birds that you're going to find. And so some of them use it as income generating for persons who are interested in ecotourism to do bird watching. When you start mining and doing all kinds of things there now, first of all, they won't have trees, much less birds. So there is a direct impact on your ability to earn. But those people also will not be able to employ persons because their economic well-being is being impacted. And so persons at the second tier level will also be impacted because they are going to lose their jobs. I am told that this proposal will employ 100 persons. Presently, over 300 persons are employed in that area, protecting the environment. And then we think about the rare species, the flora, the fauna, the birds. What is going to happen to them when you cut away the trees? Who is going to look after them? And they're still undiscovered species that the university is still exploring. What will become of them? And so, ladies and gentlemen, the fact is that while we reuse, recycle, there's more that must be done by the government, by the state, to give effect to the protection of the environment. And we are calling for an immediate review of the act that empowers the NRC Act that empowers the Prime Minister, the Minister of the Environment, to review an appeal. Because there has to be provided, except there should be an appeal. But what needs to be stated clearly is how the appeal is to be done. Who are the persons that must attend upon that appeal? And the timeline. Because in this situation, the appeal was done in July, we are told. We don't know if the decision was made in July or it was made September 4th. We don't know. But the fact of the matter is that it is post-September 3rd that the citizens were informed that the appeal was granted. And so we are calling for an immediate review of the NRCA Act to give effect to current day realities. We also believe, and whereas we are not questioning the credibility of the EIA experts, the fact is that at present the EIA is paid for by the applicant. It is not something that is paid for jointly between the government and the applicant or by the government. It is paid for by the applicant. In the spirit of openness, transparency, we believe that is something that must also be reviewed. And finally, without going into great detail, we have the situation of the Bernard Lodge lands, one of our best agricultural lands, which the government is still minded to use for housing. When we start using our plains for housing, what is going to happen? What will people eat? Where are we going to plant? And so, ladies and gentlemen, as we consider the work of the Patriots, we must also consider how can we, as responsible citizens, come together to not just give effect to the recycling project of the Patriots and other such groups, but to ensure that at all times the government operates in good faith and in the protection of the environment. Because if we do not protect the environment today, then we will not have one tomorrow or for generations to come. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much, and I want to thank the Patriots for inviting me, and I look forward to working with you to see how we can advance your work as you go forward. Thank you so much.